vamos caminando hacia el sol. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia la libertad. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia el sol. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia la libertad. A mí me gusta cantar, a mí me gusta caminar, a mí me gusta cantar. I like to sing, I like to walk, I like to sing that this road, we make it as we walk. There are no recipes. Que el camino lo vas haciendo al caminar. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia el sol. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia la unidad. Mano a mano caminando, hombro a hombro trabajando, y las tierras compartiendo. Hand to hand we are walking, shoulder to shoulder we are working, and by sharing the land we harvest freedom. Libertades cosechando, caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia el sol. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia la verdad. And the truth is that the opposite of freedom is not necessarily jail. That's why many of us have risked jail, have risked our names, reputations, our wallets, our very lives for freedom, ours or somebody else's. But the opposite of freedom is something like malnutrition, where the body starts eating itself from inside. Violence of seeing your father beat your mother. Violence of hunger. Violence of working a whole day and not getting paid, getting ripped off. Ya no más desnutrición, queremos liberación. No al egoísmo, no a la guerra. No more malnutrition. What we want is liberation. No more selfishness and war, so we can live life to the fullest. Pa vivir la vida, pa vivir la vida plena, pa vivir la vida plena, plena, plena. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia el sol. Caminando, caminando, vamos caminando hacia la paz. hay camino ya hecho, pero hay brecha preparada. There is no road already made, no recipes, but there are little paths that have been opened by our martyrs, by our ancestors, by those who've come before us, on whose shoulders we stand. On whose shoulders do you stand? Think of a name, a very concrete name, a historical name, a very personal name. Think of a name. On whose shoulders do you stand? Name that person. Say that person's name. Guadalupe Machado, my great-grandfather. No hay camino ya hecho, pero hay brecha preparada. Nuestros mártires la abrieron. Nuestros mártires la abrieron. How did they open that path? Caminando, caminando, caminando. La jornada. ¡Hey! Caminando, caminando. Vamos caminando hacia el sur. Caminando, caminando. Vamos caminando hacia la libertad. Oh. All right. Well, take, Lord, receive, right? This is take, Lord, receive in Spanish, ranchera style country. Goes like this. Toma, Señor, toda mi libertad. Recibe hoy todita mi memoria. Toma, mi Dios, todo mi entendimiento. Te doy, Señor, toda mi voluntad. Te entrego hoy todo lo que yo soy. Todo y también todito lo que tengo. Me has dado todo, Señor, te lo devuelvo. Dispón de ello según tu voluntad. Yo solo quiero tu gracia y tu amor. Eso me da la gran felicidad. Solo me basta vivir en tu amistad. Tu amor y gracia me basta y nada más. Yo solo busco tu gracia y tu amor. Eso me da la gran felicidad. Solo me basta vivir en tu amistad. Tu amor y gracia me basta y nada más. Tu amor y gracia me basta y nada más. Tu amor y gracia me basta y nada más.
freedom. I love life, and so I will block any door, knock down any door, pick the lock on any door that exists to keep our people poor and oppressed. I love life, and so I love the sight of lovers loving each other, people of every size, color, gender, and persuasion. I love life, so I like to tell you, I think that you're amazing. I love life, and so I'm hyped to write the true story of my boy Mamadou. And the night that I met you on the corner of 194 and Poe Park and hugged you so hard that your scars of addiction turned to poems of nonfiction that will be written by your children. About how their daddy had to fight crack, about how you beat that, about how tears come to my eyes when I see that. I love life so much I have to rap. Rebellious like, F that, I already done that. I will survive and then thrive like a sub-rack. Gifted in a mud rap, hot bath, relax, refocus, fight back. Halliburton, war tax, sin to say a real fact. Government is anthrax, poison in our syntax. And whistleblowers caught that. Chelsea Manning badass, long live Iraq. That's right, I wrote that. Status quo broke that. Illest flow spoke that. Fire like a backdraft, burning what I'm mad at. Y'all like, damn son, tell me you recorded that. It's all good. The CIA's got me wiretapped. For loving life so much that your cheeks stay flushed, cause I make people blush. Love it all, so I touch my head to the earth and give thanks for the birth of every ancestor who walked here first. Loving life beyond the limit, so I tremble when I spit it, cause I feel so alive. I wanna stare in the eyes of people I just met. If you love life, how you gonna let these social norms keep you in their cages? If you love life, how you not fight for just wages, see children as sages, protest prison and demand abolition. All I know is this is the world where we live in, bleeding to death in front of each other. And sometimes we don't need to write or say anything. We need to sing. We need to sing until we lose our voice and then we keep on singing. We need to sing until they shoot you in the throat and then you keep on singing because you know about Harriet Tubman's feet, about Victor Jara's fingers, about how every revolutionary lover lingers. We are history singers, so we keep singing after we die because we refuse to act like we are not alive. And we can't cut holes in border fences and crush guns to dust. And live and trust and love and bust because we have to, because we need to, because we love life too much to walk away now. And if they come for me or snipe me from a rooftop and bury my body in some borderland rubble like they have to so many of our sisters and brothers in this struggle, it will not be because of what they call me. Leftist, communist, artist, terrorist. No, it will simply be because I love you. We the people are for the people and for the people we act. We the people are for the people, now will you have our back? We the people are for the people and for the people we act. We the people are for the people, now will you have our back? Cause we won't ever let go of that hard-won freedom, freedom to what we won't ever let go of that hard-won freedom, freedom to what we the people are for the people and for the people we act. Come on, we the people all for you. When you locked up and hidden, I'ma call for you. I'ma smuggle in hope through these walls for you. You overwhelmed cause these prisons too small for you, and there's a world out there and it's all for you. I know. Most days all we wanna do is bomb, my dude. But this hood full of crack and we falling through. See, we could die, my dude, or we could rise, my dude. It's up to you, but we gotta be deciding soon. And I need you to know I see divine in you. I see God in you. I see a kid who's about to beat the odds in you. And it's time. It's time to pull up like sit-ups and finish your bit up. You've been a beginner, it's time to be bigger. Your mind getting fitter and faster than Twitter. Imagine a world where you were the winner, where you were the writer, where you were the fighter. Imagine New York without knowing their Rikers. Imagine the Bronx without knowing the fighters. Imagine we righteous right here and right now. There is a world out there that's staring you down. And it's all for you. Good food, good love, and it's all for you. Good nights in the club, and it's all for you. That love in her eyes, this flow, this rhyme, that sun in the sky, yo, it's all for you. It is all for you. There is a world out there, and it's all for you. There's an old dude singing old tunes on the corner with his whole crew, wanna show you what life was like when he was so cool. And you'll be surprised, but Big Bro could flow too. Tell you stories about the way it was, and it turns out he knows half your cousins. And every time you hear his mouth running, you just know this life is worth something. And he out there, he up one of them blocks, right by the woman with the beautiful locks and the beautiful skin. And she got a pool she loved to swim in. She can breaststroke, she can backstroke, or she can freestyle. And that's facts though, cause there's whole oceans out there. There's emotions bigger than scared. There's long rivers and small islands and good people who love smiling. I know you, bro, you love wildin'. Don't let them steal your free. Don't let them steal your free. Don't be silent, your free mind is the real rocks. They can't buy it and they can't sell it. So when you spit, you rebelling. I'm telling you to survive. What I'm telling you is survive. That real you that can heal you that you keep buried inside. And that right there, that's real work. When you real mad, you real hurt, you wanna burn this shit down and fight back, then love your brother cause he's black. Or he's brown. Or he's white, but he by your side and he down to fight for your human rights. Son, I'm here to ask you to fight. No closed fists and no dumb shit. No, I'm here to ask you to write. And I know I don't know your plight, but I know your soul's full of light. So write, brother, just write, brother, and we gon' be all right. Cause there's rooftops and there's sunsets. There's smart people and dumb texts. There's some regrets that are just worth it. There's real sweat from real working. There's satisfaction and love in action and hands to heal all the hurting. There's late nights full of laughter and there's daydreaming about it after. There's books of words you ain't never heard, but you can still learn how to use them. Cause there's languages full of fusion. There's clarity and confusion. There's soft skin and there's hot sand and a chance to heal upon this land. There's good music and traffic. There's heartbreak and there's havoc. There's some love that's so good that you'll start believing in magic. And it's tragic when you can't have it. But I get you getting mad at it. But the good news is that y'all cool because real soon that's all you. Only you can write your song. So write that shit down strong. You know Destiny? She just called for you. She said there is a world out there. And it is all for you. Thank you.
We are not
1.5 times. Ready? Very nice. Is Mackenzie over there? Could you show me the slide for the arriesgate, please? Thanks. All right, folks. Can you say arriesgate? Can you say arriesgate? I really like how you all sang it so strong. So I want us to do it again, because there's a line that Kia talked to us about, which was a lot of promises are made, but the only way that they will happen, the only way they will become a reality is if we risk and if we demand, if we push. Correct? Correct? Who's ready to organize? Who's ready to make the change? Who's ready to be the change? So let's sing it together. Arriesgate, 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 hay algo más. Arriesgate, arriesgate, arriesgate sin vacilar. Let's try it, todos unidos en la vida. Ready? Todos vida. Vamos buscando un horizonte. Hear it now. Arriesgate, arriesgate, hay algo más. Arriesgate, arriesgate, arriesgate sin vacilar. Okay, once again, the side on the left over here is pretty strong. On the right. All right, let me hear you guys together. Wait, this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, and todos. Eso. Vamos formando un horizonte. Arriesgate, hay algo más. Arriesgate, arriesgate, arriesgate sin vacilar. Cambiemos las promesas en realidades. That means let's change the promises and make them reality. Who's ready to do that? Who's ready to work for justice? Who's ready to create a new day? Cambiemos las promesas en realidades. Luchemos como hermanas por la justicia. Sembremos hoy la aurora del nuevo día. Todos unidos, ready, todos. Can hear you, vamos, vamos. Can hear you, arriesgate. Arriesgate, arriesgate, hay algo más. Arriesgate, arriesgate, arriesgate sin vacilar. All right, everybody standing as a symbol of being ready, being awake. Let me see those hands up. Ready, todos unidos. Todos. Vamos. Arriesgate, 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 hay algo más. Arriesgate, arriesgate, arriesgate sin vacilar. Roll call.
All right, let's give it one more time for Francisco. Folks, we are at our final roll call. So, we're gonna need y'all to bring the energy. Here we go. Bellarmine College Preparatory. Bellarmine Prep. Bishop O'Dowd High School. Boston College High School. That's great. Boston College School of Theology and Ministry. I love the solidarity. Cristo Rey Philadelphia High School. Cristo Rey St. Martin College Prep. DeSmet Jesuit High School. Fairfield College Preparatory School. Fairfield University. Magnificat High School. Marquette University. Mayfield Senior School. McQuay Jesuit High School. Marian Mercy Academy. I see y'all get dispersed. Awesome.
St. Joseph Academy. St. Joseph's Prep. St. Joe's University. St. Louis University. St. Louis University High School. The Keynote Border Initiative. Red Cloud Indian School. Regis High School, New York. Regis Jesuit, Colorado. Rockhurst University. Seattle U. Spring Hill College. Stone Ridge School. The Catholic University of America. University of Detroit Jesuit High School. University of Detroit Mercy. And the University of San Francisco. Thank you. Villanova. And now we'll hear from two more incredible sponsors, Ethics Merch and the McGrath Institute for Jesuit Catholic Education at USF.
All right, folks. We are now excited to welcome our final Ignatian Network speaker to the stage. Give it up for Darius White, an English teacher at St. Ignatius College Preparatory in San Francisco. Welcome, brother.
The move. We've all had some time to sit alone, time to wonder, time to reflect, do that Ignatian examine. Y'all know what I mean? Been thinking, where do we go from here? Where have we been? Where are we going? During the last 18 months, I have lost sight of the world, myself, and my path. What path, you ask? It's a path only once I decide to take that first step. That first step means your boy has curiosity, imagination, faith. First in my mind, then by foot, I make my first step. And that first step doesn't have to be forward. I'm taking many steps back, out of mistake, and others out of necessity, to gain perspective. With my first step, I decided to stand in front of that mirror, that man in the mirror. I was stunned by the fact that I couldn't remember the last time I looked so deeply into someone's eyes, let alone my own. Y'all feel me out there? What did I see? I couldn't make it out at first, for my vision had been blurry for some time due to the hours of staring at a screen, avoiding eye contact with myself. Only when the computer battery died did I see parts of myself in the darkened screen. I guess I was lost in a projected reality, y'all. One in which mass couldn't stop the mass spread of violence. One in which faith was mocked as fiction. And one in which division was the new religion. What has come of these missteps? Mishap, misinformation, mistreatment. I don't know about you, but I felt lost. Our viruses, vices, and vitriol led me to want to feel something new, do something different. So I decided to make a move. My next move came after one late summer night. It was recent. I'm gonna paint the scene for y'all. Late night, maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Car guts hanging out, my heart racing, and my body so still in the back of that police car. I wish I stayed on path that night, for real, y'all. I wish I stayed on path instead of swerving that night. I wish my mama was there to protect me as I sat scared, stiff, locked in the back seat like a caged animal. I hope you know why this caged bird did not sing. And it ain't because of this lovely black skin and this lovely hair. Because I'll tell you, my black is beautiful. Our black is beautiful. Our identities are beautiful. And to the young men who look just like me, I hope you never, ever, ever have to see life from the back of a police car. At that moment, only they can let you in. At that moment, only they can let you out of the car and out of a life. I wish I never thought of them, y'all. I wish I never thought of them, but my mind was racing. And I hope we never forget them. Philando Castile, Tony McDade, Sandra Bland. My mama looked like Sandra Bland. I got brothers that look like Philando Castile. I got homies, transgender, LGBTQ, like Tony McDade. I could have easily been one of them if this black body made any sudden moves. And it didn't matter how many degrees I had, how many times I got into college, how proper and white my voice seemed. It just didn't matter at that moment. I was just another black person in the back of that car. I could have lost my life twice that night, by accident and by cop. And I'm not taking shots at individual cops. I'm just letting you know I'm not gonna lay down for no institution. I also know there's no such thing as an honorable discharge when matters are in the hands of these systems. You know, the intersectional isms and phobias. Of course, our identities are intersectional, but we can't forget about the isms. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Okay, y'all there with me? That night, back home, I sat in silence, wondering if heaven was waiting on me. Silent night, holy night. I hope you know the song. After a few days of reflection, I thought about whether or not I was moving towards heaven. While I've never been there, I saw heaven when I looked into the eyes of my friends' newborn babies. Like babies, we have all been wide-eyed, watching, wondering what will happen next in our world. While I've never been there, I heard heaven in the form of teenage laughter once we were able to return to the classroom. And while I've never been there, I felt heaven once I felt the spirit of my late cotton-picking grandmother next to my bed, using her silence to rest my worries and awaken my faith. And at some point through it all, I would say we've all felt alone in that silence, so piercing, so present. Again, I decided to move within that silence. I had begun my internal pilgrimage. In that silence, my hopes and dreams became the soundtrack of my journey to rediscovery. And when I let myself ask what if and why not, I could hear my intuition calling, ringing, singing to me and my imagination. If you don't believe me, sit and listen to your mind, body, and spirit, and tell me you don't hear anything. Tell me you don't feel nothing. Tell me you don't see anything in your mind's eye. Even if for a split second, y'all, a split second, you are reconciling and reckoning with whom you have been and whom you are becoming. We are human beings. We are always moving between being and becoming. During the last year or two, you know, some of us found God, some of us found family, some of us found nothing but ourselves. The process of finding means we were moving and probably connecting to something, a universe, a person, a vision, all of which require various pieces, people, and procedures to make a whole. You know, a kinship, if you will. Sure, I'm just a black kid from Texas, right? I'm just a black kid from the country. One cow, one store, one school. I take that back. I take a step back. I am more than just a black kid from Texas. He is more than just his parents' wealth. She is more than just her body, and they are more than an imaginary gender binary. I see you. No, your boy really sees you. I see you in the yellow. I see you in the red. I see you with the blonde hair. I'm here for you. You know, so let's make a move together. I want to move closer to you so I can get to know you better, so I can love you better. And let me be the first again to say and thank you, or second to say, Brian Massengale, I love you. I love you all. And I'm not saying our paths will be easy to find or easy to navigate. I actually have no idea where these paths will lead us. Hell, for heaven's sake, I just hope we see and recognize one another in motion. Maybe even make our pilgrimage together, hand in hand, arm in arm. Maybe even make these moments into momentum and momentum into movements. I don't mind leading or following, as long as I am moving with you and we are moving together. And that's the move.
Some powerful words from the heart, from the soul. I'm just going to do a little music here for you all to make space of silence and reflect on the words we've just heard. What comes up for you? What floats up in your consciousness?
Let's hear it once more for Darius White. And now, I am so excited to introduce our final keynote speaker of the weekend, Father Greg Boyle. Father Greg is the founder of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, the largest gang intervention, rehabilitation, and re-entry program in the world. Born and raised in LA and a Jesuit priest, from 1986 to 1992, he served as pastor of Dolores Mission Church, the poorest Catholic church in LA with the highest concentration of gang activity in the city. He witnessed the devastating impact of gang violence on his community during the so-called Decade of Death that began in the late 1980s and peaked at 1,000 gang-related killings in 1992. In the face of law enforcement tactics and criminal justice policies of suppression and mass incarceration as the means to end gang violence, he, with parish and community members, adopted what was a radical approach at the time: treat gang members as human beings. In 1988, they started what would eventually become Homeboy Industries, which employs and trains former gang members in a range of social enterprises, as well as provides critical services to thousands of men and women who walk through its doors every day seeking a better life. Father Greg is the author of the 2010 New York Times bestseller, Tattoos on the Heart, The Power of Boundless Compassion, Barking to the Choir, The Power of Radical Kinship, published in 2017, and The Whole Language, The Power of Extravagant Tenderness, released this fall. Please join me in welcoming Father Greg Boyle.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you, Darius, for your eloquence. Thank you, Frankie, for your friendship and your music. Thank you for being here, and thank you for turning your clocks back so you're all on time. Thank you for mentioning my third book, which just came out. My fear was that it would be, Godfather 3, and so I just don't want it to suck, like Godfather 3. And, I was on the plane with Saul and Brandon, and I was returning to my seat from the restroom, and I was walking, and there was a guy sitting on the aisle, and his tray table was down, and a book was open, and I could see the distinctive color of my third book, which is kind of turquoise. And I looked, I said, "Oh my God, he's reading my book," and I looked at him, and he was totally knocked out, drooling, babas. It was, so I'm happy to address insomnia in our country. Homie said that you should always begin your talks with self-defecating humor. And I said, yeah, no shit. That's, and talking about my book that way sort of is self-defecating. So what are we to do? We want God's dream come true, which is, as Jesus says, that you may be one, but there is no us and them, it's just us. And connection and communion, and this is all that God longs for. And so, of course, we're created in the image and likeness of God, but Richard Rohr says that our image of God creates us, which is equally true. So that's why we want to refine and get to know this God who loves us without measure and without regret, this God who can't take her eyes off of us, this God who longs to just cherish us, this God who protects us from nothing and sustains us in everything. We want to be in the world who this God is, loving, kind, and compassionate. And that's why we gather here. I'm proud of, that this is an Ignatian thing, because we want to recognize the keen insights of St. Ignatius of Loyola. And I'm inching towards next year 50 years as a Jesuit, and we have 3 Jesuits who work at Homeboy Industries, and the truth be told, the homies don't know that much, like who Jesuits are, and I was sitting in my office, and it's glass enclosed, and a homie named Adrian was walking a huge tour group in front of my office, and we have thousands of tours from all over the world, and people come through, and homies take them through and show them everything, and tattoo removal and the bakery, and tell their stories while they do it. So Adrian has this group of like 15 people parked right in front of my office, and I see them and hi, and it's like, observe our founder in his natural habitat, and I'm talking to these people there, and he's got a loud-ass voice, and so he's saying, this is Father Greg Boyle. He's the founder of Homeboy Industries. He is a jiu-jitsu priest. So I kind of gave him some of my better moves. We're about kinship, we're about connection. There's an end goal to our standing at the margins so that the margins erase. The idea is God is inclusion, and so we want to expand this circle of compassion so that no one is standing outside the circle. It's about connection and union, no us and them. It's about obliterating the illusion that we are separate. As Darius said so eloquently, we're human beings which is to say we all share the last name, same last name, beings. We're all born into the world wanting the same things. So how do we find our connection with each other, which is the only thing God wants? It's the only adoration that God has any interest in. And, you know, the homies aren't here right now. They're out seeing the sights, and they were going to the Holocaust Museum. And I've encouraged homies and homegirls that I've brought to D.C. to go do that. It's kind of a life-changing experience if you've never been. And I went a number of years ago and with Lewis and Joe, big, huge gang members, and you know, I said, go see the museum, and I was in the lobby waiting for them after they were done. They did like 4 hours in the museum. When they came down, they were blown away, and they were debriefing about the experience. And then we looked over there, and we saw this man in his 80s who was sitting behind a desk, and he had a kind of a name plate, and it said, Holocaust Survivor. And there was a chair in front of the desk as if to invite you to sit in it. And we see this, and Joe says, gosh, you know, what would we say to somebody who had suffered so much? And Lewis, because he was fearless, he says, well, I'm going to go talk to him. We said, good, we'll be in the bookstore, you know. And so he told us about it later. The man's name was Jacob, and he had been in Auschwitz as an early teenager, and both parents were killed there. He watched his sisters gunned down right before his eyes, and because he was young, he was a worker, and he survived the experience. And Lewis listened to him. After he spoke and told his story, Lewis pulled out his card, and he says, I work at Homeboy Industries. It's the largest gang intervention, rehab, reentry program in the world. I hope that if you're ever near LA, you'll come by and visit. And Jacob studied the card. And Lewis says to him, I'm 35 years old. Half of my life I've spent locked up. And Jacob kind of scoffs a little bit. He said, oh, American prisons, you know. You got your own room, you have your own bed, you have a mattress, you have a pillow. We slept on wooden planks. And if you said one word in line, they'd pull you out of line and beat you nearly half to death. And Lewis listens to him. And then Lewis says, yeah, you know, once I was beaten so badly at county jail that I looked like the Elephant Man. And they stripped me naked and threw me in a cell, and I had to sleep on a metal sheet. I said, well, Lewis, let me see if I got this right. You were comparing your experience and suffering with a Holocaust survivor? And he was clear-eyed, and his voice was kind of soaked with the gospel. And he looked at me, and he said, no, I wasn't comparing. I wasn't competing with him. And then his eyes welled up with tears, and it was hard to get out this last part. I was connecting with him, which is the hope. Wallace Stevens, the poet, says, we live in the description of the place, but not the place itself. We need to move beyond settling for the partial God and hold out for the one we actually have. We need to no longer settle for the description of the place, but hold out for the place itself. We need to not just settle for pointing things out, but to pointing the way. We need not to settle for shaking our fists and instead hold out for rolling up our sleeves. The place itself. I was praying the other day and reflecting on Jesus and the Gerasene demoniacs, and there are like 3 versions in the Gospels, and One of them, this is the guy who's kind of on the road and he's naked and people don't want to walk down that road because he's kind of wackadoodle and you don't want to get near him and he's violent and unpredictable. And in this one version, Jesus looks at him and he says, "What is your name?" And the guy says, "I am Legion," which I guess means I'm a lot. There are a lot of me. But I read a translation the other day that said, instead of "I am Legion," "I am what I'm afflicted with." And pretty soon he's clothed and sitting at Jesus' feet. And he's listening to him, he's following him. Because the man is not what he is afflicted with. He discovers his true self in loving. He is cherished in the asking of his name, and he thrives because of it. We're not just supposed to point things out, we're supposed to point the way. And love never fails. Everyone believes in a God of second chances, though our society offers very few of them. Everyone believes in the infinite mercy of our God, but we can be quite stingy. Everybody believes in a God who includes everyone. But we ostracize and we cut off. And we say, "You don't belong to us." And yet the truth that God, who loves us without measure and without regret, tells us is that everyone is unshakably good, and we belong to each other. And we need to ask each other's name. And as Darius said, see each other. "O nobly born, remember who you really are," the Buddhists say. We need to see each other. Once I was invited to speak at on a radio call-in show, and it was all in Spanish for 1 hour. And it was early in the morning, and I drove over to West Covina or wherever it was, and I'm doing this Q&A with these two broadcasters, all in Spanish, and every once in a while they'd take a phone call from, somebody, and they'd say, "Maria de Compton tiene una pregunta," and mostly they were mothers asking me questions about what do I do with my son who's a gang member or wandering perilously close to gangs. And so I did the best I could. And it was 1 hour in Spanish, back and forth. And then they finally had one last caller. "Tenemos una llamada de Filiberto, de Downey." Well, Filiberto, I go, well, that's not a name you hear every day. And we have a worker at Homeboy named Filiberto, we call him Philly. And so the call comes in over the loudspeaker and says, "Hey, G, it's me, Philly. Yeah, I'm not feeling that good this morning, so I'm just calling to tell you I won't be coming to work." So Philly chose a radio call-in show to call in work. I said, "Okay, Phil, gotcha. Hope you feel better." Philly is in a wheelchair, and because he was shot and paralyzed, and because of gang violence, and he wheels one day into my office, and out of the blue he just says, "Hey, I found this flica the other day, a photograph." I said, "Yeah, it's a picture of me. I think I'm like 9. It's a little black and white. I think my parents, it was for the migra or something, I don't know, for an ID. I just keep looking at that picture. I can't believe it's me." And I said, "Oh, well, that's interesting." 2 days later, he wheeled himself into my office. He said, I can't get over looking at that picture. I can't believe it's me. And I'm thinking maybe he doesn't remember that he brought this up before. And I said, "Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. That's interesting." It was kind of odd, out of the wild blue yonder. And then a couple days later, he wheels himself in, and he flicks the flica on my desk, and there he is, this little 9-year-old unsmiling Filiberto. And he's got a huge shock of hair, and presently sitting in his wheelchair in front of me, he's all clean-shaven, as homies do, And I don't know what to say. And I go, damn, Philly, you have hair. I don't know what to say. And I don't know if he's giving me the picture. And the only way to determine that is to offer to give it back. And so I extend it to him. And he says, do you think there's any way we can make it big? I said, well, sure. So at the end of the day, I went to the Montebello Town Center, and I walk into the camera store, and the guy comes up to me, and he says, can I help you? I said, make it big. And he said, I think it's too small to enlarge. And I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but you have to make this photograph bigger than it is. And then he kind of worked his magic, and he brought it back to me, and it was kind of way bigger, and it was kind of green and a little bit grainy. And this is not a story about a photograph. It's a story about the self made to feel too small from having been bombarded with messages and shame and disgrace. The Gerasene demoniac identifying himself as I am what I'm afflicted with. And it is our task to put ourselves at the margins, to stand with the demonized so that the demonizing will stop, and stand with the disposable so that the day will come when we stop throwing people away, and to stand at the margins because they'll never get erased otherwise, to put ourselves in proximity so that we can stand with the easily despised and readily left out, and those who think they are what they are afflicted with. Jesus says, who do you say that I am? But what he's really saying is, how do you say it? If we just point things out, we're not pointing the way. How do you say it? Again, one morning I was in my office, and the reception area was packed with gang members trying to get into our 18-month training program. And there's the well, if any of you have been at Homeboy, and there's homies and homegirls who are there and checking people in. People are there to get tattoos removed and see job developers and have a therapy session. And it's packed. And I'm talking to some donors, but I can look over their heads and I can see that a guy has come in, a homie, I don't know him, but he's a gang member, and there's a look of alarm on the faces of the two homies and a homegirl, and they're looking at him, and they're alarmed, and the reason is he has a soda can, and with every punctuation mark, it's a big glop of sodas flopping onto the counter, a punctuation mark here, a period, an exclamation. And I look at it and I diagnose it kind of immediately as meth and madness. So I think, oh shoot, I'm going to have to get up and deal with them. But before I can even leave my office, I can see that Miguel Lugo has shown up, and he's the head of security. He's a homie who was in prison for 25 years, half of that time in the SHU, in solitary. The day won't ever come when I have more courage, or I am more noble, or I'm closer to God than Miguel Lugo. And big, huge guy, and he's wearing a shirt, and it says security on the back. And I can see he puts his arm gently around this guy, his shoulder, and walks him outside. We have kind of a policy, get folks outside because people are so easily triggered inside. And so he has him outside, and he's telling me about this later. He looks at the guy and he says, hey, how about you and me, we walk down to Olvera Street and I'll buy you some tacos. And the guy looks at Miguel, steely-eyed, and he lifts up his shirt, revealing a gun tucked into the front of his pants. He says, how about I put a bullet in your head? And he drops his shirt. And Miguel looks at him and he says, 2 tacos or 3? And the two of them walk down to Olvera Street, 2 blocks away from us. And he says the guy is having a conversation with the voices in his head, but the voices leap out like a bunch of frogs, he says. And he's having this conversation. Don't trust his ass. He's okay. No, shoot him. No, he's buying me tacos, like that, back and forth. Then they get to Olvera Street, and he buys them 3 tacos. And the guy takes 1 taco, and he throws it to the ground. And he devours the other 2 because he's hungry. And we all share the same last name, Being. And we were all born wanting the same things. And everyone is unshakably good. And everyone belongs to us. And so our task in pointing the way is to repair severed belonging. Our covenantal relationship reminds us, in this gospel today at Mass and in the first reading, you'll hear about the widow. And the covenant says, from God, as I have loved you, so must you have a special preferential care and love for the widow, orphan, and stranger. And God isolates these people as the folks who know what it's like to have been cut off. And because they have suffered in exactly this way, God thinks these are the folks who will guide the rest of us to the kinship of God, because they are trustworthy. And so we stand with them, and we allow our hearts to be reached and altered because we do. And trust me, the world will accuse you of wasting your time at the margins. But the prophet Jeremiah writes, for in this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voices of those who sing. What Miguel Lugo knew about this guy was that there's a thorn underneath. The homies always say, find the thorn underneath. That's the mystical way of seeing. It's not about morality, because morality has never kept us moral. It's only kept us from each other. It's about taking seriously what Jesus took seriously: inclusion, nonviolence, unconditional loving kindness, and compassionate acceptance. We're meant to kind of get underneath and see as mystics do. My friend Mirabai Starr, who's a mystic and writes about mysticism, says that once you know the God of love, you fire all the other gods. The moral one, the one who talks about right and wrong and good and evil, I've never met an evil person in my life. And I worked with gang members for almost 40 years. I've met damaged people, traumatized people, despondent people, mentally ill people, people on PCP and meth. Never met a bad person. Find me a mystic who thinks there's a hell, and I think you will have located somebody who's not a mystic. I want to see, as Miguel Lugo does with the meth madness guy. John Lewis, the great John Lewis, said, we all live in the same house. He doesn't qualify it and say some live on the 3rd floor and some in the basement. He doesn't use it as some aspirational statement. One day we might all live in the same house. He says it straight out. We all live in the same house. The place itself, that's what we're meant to imagine and to make real. Don't get stuck in moral outrage. Hold out for moral compass that sees, as a mystic does, that sees the thorn underneath. I was in Sacramento, actually about to go to Jesuit High. Is Jesuit High somewhere here? Oh, there you are. Good job yesterday, you guys. And I had 2 homies with me, and And so we got in late. It was a Sunday night, and because I had kind of a later mass and later than I wanted to arrive, and we were, Rob and Chamuco, we called him Chamuco, and myself were waiting for the bus that takes us to the rental car center. And we get on the bus, and Rob and I sit kind of towards the back, facing each other. But Chamuco sits at the very end. And Chamuco, we call him Chamuco because it's affectionate name for the devil, because he has very pronounced dark devil's horns tattooed on his forehead, along with some other things, a lot of ink. And he sits in the back, and I watch people get on the bus, and I watch them avoid sitting next to Chamuco. And they do this, they get near and they see his big ass devil's horns, and they do this foxtrot not to sit next to him. And then finally, there are only two seats left, and they're on either side of him. And so they have to sit there, and they're not one bit happy about it. And so we drive in this wooded, dark, secluded area from the terminal to the car rental place. And somewhere right in the middle, the bus shuts down. It's an electric bus. And we can hear the woman, the driver, she's turning the keys. I'm sorry, give me a minute. And everybody's silent for some time, and it was odd that nobody was speaking. And then out of the silence from the back of the bus in this secluded, dark, wooded area is Chamuco, and he says, "I saw this in a movie once. It does not end well." Well, every damn buddy just died laughing. As the homies say at Homeboy Industries, we laughed from the stomach. Brought to you, kinship, union, connection by the guy with the devil's horns. This was some years ago after the election of 2016. My guess is that half the people on the bus voted one way in that presidential election, and half voted another way. But there we all were, laughing from the stomach. Kinship, a connection that God might recognize. A homie texted me during the pandemic. He had somehow wandered onto some YouTube video of a bishop who was talking about sin and how we needed to have a contrite heart, and he was kind of worked up about it and felt terrible and how sinful he was. And I wrote him back, I said, God doesn't see sin, God sees Son. And God doesn't have enemies. There is no us and them. It's just us. And we're meant to go from this place to create such union. People always ask me about enemies working together, and decidedly it's tense initially. And homies will say, you know, I want a job and I want to work at Homeboy. I said, well, okay, how about in the bakery? I have an opening, but you got to work with X, Y, and Z. And I rattle off the names of rivals, enemies. And they always say the same thing, I'll work with them, but I'm not going to talk to them. Which used to bother me until you understand that we're all human beings sharing the same last name, and humans can't sustain this. You can't demonize someone you know. So I had a homie named Youngster who was 19, and I thought he was ready. And so he wanted to hang up his gloves and no longer gangbang. He wanted to transform his pain so he didn't transmit it anymore. And so I bring him over to our Homeboy silkscreen factory, which has been around for almost 27 years. Thousands of gang members have worked there over the years. So I bring Youngster in and I introduce him to all his coworkers, and I watch him shake hands with each worker. Many of them are enemies. There's like 30 of them. And he's making eye contact, firm handshake. I'm thinking, wow, this is great. And then he gets to the very last guy, a guy named Puppet, who seemed to be trying to avoid this encounter altogether. And when Puppet and Youngster are in each other's vicinity, they mumble something. They stare at their shoes. They won't shake hands. Well, I know that they're enemies because I know what gangs they're from, but he just shook hands with a whole bunch of enemies. So I find out later that this is a beef that's quite personal, a hatred beyond which neither of them thought they could get past. So I sensed that at the moment, and I looked at him. I said, hey, if you guys can't hang working with each other, let me know. I got a gang of vatos who want this job. Calladitos, they don't say a word. Well, 6 months later, Puppet is walking to a corner store some distance from his home, and he purchases something. And as he's walking home, for some reason, he takes a shortcut and he dodges into an alley. And suddenly, unexpectedly, he's surrounded by 10 members of a rival gang, 10 against 1, and they beat him badly. He lands on the ground, and they will not stop kicking his head until he's lifeless. Somebody finds his body and takes him to White Memorial Hospital, where he's declared effectively brain dead. But it's the policy there to keep him connected to machines for 48 hours so you can get a clean, flat line read so the doctors can declare him dead. I was at St. Louis University giving a talk. I flew home immediately. I've seen a lot of horrible things in my life, but nothing to compare to the sight of this young man with his head swollen many times its size. You could barely train your eyes on him. So at the end of the second day, I anointed his forehead with oil. I said a blessing prayer, and we disconnected. And I buried him a week later. But in the first 24 hours, as he was still connected to the machine, I was in my office alone. It was 8 o'clock at night, and the phone rings. And it's youngster, Puppet's coworker from the silkscreen factory. Hey, he says, that's messed up about what happened to Puppet. I said, yeah, it is. And then with a certain kind of eagerness, he says, is there anything I can do? Can I give him my blood? And we both fall silent under the weight of it. But he's the one to break the silence, and he says, choking back his tears with great deliberation, he was not my enemy. He was my friend. We worked together. Now, can I say that always happens? Yeah, of course it does. Any exceptions? No. Separation is an illusion. We all happen to share the same last name. We were all born into the world wanting the same things. And we are invited to create a community of kinship such that God might recognize it. We all live in the same house. Do not settle for the description of the place. Hold out for the place itself. Don't settle for pointing things out. Hold out for pointing the way. Don't settle for just shaking your fist. Roll up your sleeves. Create the place where we cherish each other with every breath. We are confident in you that you will not care if somebody accuses you of wasting your time. For in this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voices of those who sing. Thank you very much.
Let's keep the spirit of active contemplation and prayer. Very simple refrain goes like this. Ready? It's a multilingual refrain. Goes la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Try it. La la la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. One more time, stronger. La la. Hey I oh, la 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 la, hey I oh, la 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 la. You can have our harmony, la 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 la, harmonize. La 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 la, la 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 la. You see, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. We are the power of the river. We are the rain within the storm. We are the force beneath the ocean. We are the power. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. We are the working people. We build up and we tear down. We hold a vision of the future that makes the world go round. La 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 la, hey I oh, la 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 la, hey I oh, la 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 la, hey la 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 la, hey I, la 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 la, hey I, la 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 la, la 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 la, hey I, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, hey, la 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 la, porque la sangre no tiene frontera, es de un color y nada más. Se desperdicia en las guerras, pero da vida en el amor y en la paz. La 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 la, la 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 la. Let me hear you now. Hey, ah. La la la. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. We are the working people. We are the rain within the storm. We are the power of the ocean. We are the power. La 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 la. We are the power. La 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 la. We are. Sing it with me. The power.
Let's hear it once more for Father Greg Boyle. All right, before we break, we have just a few announcements. So we just need like 60 more seconds of your attention. I promise there aren't that many. First, we'd like to show our gratitude with a round of applause for the Washington Hilton staff that has been incredible this weekend.
We've also got a few important announcements about Mass. So first, if you are participating in the Mass choir, please meet at the main stage immediately following these announcements. Readers and Eucharistic ministers, you should all meet here at the front stage at 3:50. Mass is going to take place here in the International Ballroom at 4:30 p.m. The offertory collection during Mass will support the work of the Ignatian Solidarity Network, including ISN's efforts to sustain the energy of the teach-in throughout the year. It's possible to make a donation either via Venmo or online at ignatiansolidarity.net as well. We encourage you to please be generous.
Small group advocacy trainings will take place at 7:15 in all of the breakout spaces. If you haven't received your room assignment, please send one member of your delegation to the registration desk to find out.
Tonight at 9:30 p.m., you're welcome to join in putting the teach-in into action outside of the White House in Lafayette Square. We will gather there to pray for an end to Title 42, the policy being unjustly used to turn away asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border during the pandemic. Lafayette Square is a 1.2-mile walk from the hotel straight down Connecticut Avenue. Our presence there will be peaceful and prayerful, and we ask those who join us to come in that spirit. Up on the screens, the QR codes will provide you with a link to the program for the vigil. We won't have amplified sound, so having this link will help you to follow along even if you cannot hear well.
We'll also gather for a public witness tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Please note that this year's public witness will take place near the Capitol reflecting pool between the Capitol building and the National Mall. A map is available in your program book. If you have any questions, please see the registration desk. And lastly, if you lost your phone, we may have it up here. So please come see us right after this. Thank you, and see you at Mass.